For months, fans believed Iman Shumpert and Teyana Taylor had figured out how to do what most celebrity couples fail at: separate without chaos. They made it look calm, respectful, almost too perfect. So, when word broke that Iman had reacted to Teyana possibly dating actor Aaron Pierre, the shock wasn't loud at first. It was stunned silence because this wasn't supposed to happen. After their split, both Iman and Teyana carefully presented a united front. There were no messy interviews, no public insults, no social media wars. Instead, there were statements about growth, mutual respect, and prioritizing their daughters above everything else. Fans praised them nonstop, calling them an example of how adults should handle divorce. Teyana appeared confident and focused, pouring herself into her career, fashion, and creative projects. Iman stayed quieter, choosing a more private path while still showing up as a present and proud father. From the outside, it looked like two people who had accepted the end of their marriage without bitterness. But healing is rarely as clean as it looks online. Even when two people separate peacefully, emotions don't disappear overnight. They settle quietly in the background, waiting for something to stir them back up. And in this case, that something was the sudden appearance of Aaron Pierre's name in the conversation. It didn't start with confirmation or paparazzi photos. It started the way most modern celebrity stories do, with speculation, a few sightings, a few coincidences, fans noticing patterns, and then jumping to conclusions. At first, it felt harmless, almost expected. Teyana is beautiful, talented, and successful. Of course, people would assume she'd move on. But this rumor felt different. The moment fans started seriously believing that Teyana might be dating Aaron Pierre, the tone online shifted. People weren't just curious, they were emotionally invested. Aaron Pierre isn't just any name. He's respected, private, and CA, and carries a completely different public image. That contrast alone made fans pay attention. Suddenly, this wasn't just about Teyana dating someone new. It was about what that meant for Iman, for their family, and for the co-parenting balance everyone believed was solid. What really intensified the situation was Iman's reaction. Not loud, not explosive, but noticeable. Fans began picking up on subtle changes. A post, a comment, a reaction that didn't look random. And in the world of celebrity culture, subtlety often speaks louder than shouting. People could feel it instantly. Something had shifted. The calm energy was gone. Instead of responding like a jealous ex, Iman's reaction came across as something else entirely: protective, uncomfortable, and emotionally charged in a way that suggested this wasn't about ego. This was about boundaries. And once fans sensed that, the conversation completely changed. Suddenly, people weren't asking, "Is Teyana dating again?" They were asking, "Did this cross a line?" Because when kids are involved, dating stops being just personal. It becomes something that affects routines, environments, and emotional stability. Fans started wondering whether Iman felt blindsided, whether he felt out of the loop, or whether certain conversations should have happened privately before rumors went public. And that's where the custody talk began. Not because anyone confirmed a legal battle, but because the energy shifted in a way that made people nervous. When co-parenting is working, both sides usually move carefully. When one side reacts emotionally, it raises questions about whether something feels off behind the scenes. Fans began speculating that Iman's concern wasn't about who Teyana was dating, but how fast things were moving and how visible it was becoming. The internet, of course, split immediately. One side defended Teyana fiercely. They argued she has every right to move on, to be happy, and to live her life without asking permission from her ex. They reminded everyone that divorce means separation, not control. To them, Iman's reaction felt unnecessary, maybe even possessive. The other side saw it completely differently. They viewed Iman's response as a father protecting his peace and his children. They argued that once kids are involved, communication matters more than freedom. To them, his reaction wasn't jealousy, it was concern. What made the situation even more intense was Teyana's silence. She didn't rush to clarify anything. She didn't deny or confirm the rumors. She didn't respond to Iman directly. And that silence felt intentional, strategic, almost calculated. Some fans saw it as maturity, refusing to fuel drama. Others saw it as dismissive, ignoring emotions that deserved acknowledgement. Either way, the lack of response left room for speculation to grow. Aaron Pierre, meanwhile, found himself pulled into a storm he never spoke on. His silence placed him at the center of assumptions without giving him a voice. And sometimes silence doesn't protect you. It turns you into a symbol for whatever narrative people want to believe. As the story continued to develop, fans began revisiting old interviews and moments between Iman and Teyana, searching for clues they might have missed. They noticed how deeply Iman values fatherhood, how often he speaks about structure, presence, and emotional responsibility. That context made his reaction make more sense to some people. It didn't feel impulsive. It felt personal. This is where things get uncomfortable. Because even when two people divorce peacefully, new relationships can reopen emotional wounds in ways nobody expects. It doesn't mean either person wants the other back. It means the past still exists, especially when children tie you together forever. Dating publicly changes dynamics. It forces conversations that may not have happened yet. And if those conversations are skipped, tension builds fast. Fans started asking whether this situation could escalate legally, not because of proof, but because of pattern. In celebrity history, custody drama often starts exactly like this. Subtle reactions, emotional statements, and growing concern over boundaries. Nobody confirmed court filings. Nobody accused anyone of wrongdoing. But the fear alone was enough to change how people viewed the situation. At the heart of it all was a deeper truth most people don't like to admit. Healing isn't linear. You can be okay for months, even years, until one moment brings everything rushing back. For Iman, seeing Teyana possibly move on so publicly may have triggered emotions he hadn't fully processed yet. Not because he wants control, but because the family dynamic he knows is changing again. For Teyana, silence may be her way of protecting herself. She's always been someone who values autonomy and strength. Responding emotionally could pull her back into a narrative she's trying to outgrow. Choosing silence might feel like the only way to maintain control over her own story. But silence doesn't always create peace. Sometimes it creates distance. As fans continue to debate, one thing becomes clearer. This isn't about gossip anymore. It's about how difficult it is to truly separate when children are involved. About how new love can collide with old responsibilities. And about how public lives turn private emotions into headlines. Whether this situation cools down or escalates depends entirely on communication behind closed doors. If boundaries are clarified, this could fade quietly. If emotions stay unspoken, tension could grow. If custody ever becomes part of this conversation, the tone of the entire story could darken instantly. What feels tense now could turn heavy, emotional, and far more serious than social media drama. At this point, the only undeniable truth is that the calm, perfectly controlled image fans once believed in has fractured. It hasn't collapsed completely, but the cracks are visible enough to remind everyone that healing isn't finished. It's ongoing, uneven, and still vulnerable to pressure. That's why focusing on who reacted wrong, or who moved on too fast, misses the bigger picture. This isn't just about Iman's response or Teyana's silence. It's two people carrying unresolved emotions while millions watch, comment, and judge in real time. When one voice speaks and the other stays silent, speculation floods the space left behind. Silence turns into a message, even when it was never meant to be one. The internet doesn't wait for clarity or context. It builds stories, picks sides, and turns fragments into conclusions. Every pause is overanalyzed. Every look is dissected. What begins as private pain quickly becomes public debate, driven more by assumptions than truth. In moments like this, feeling unheard can cut just as deeply as being openly attacked. What makes this moment so uneasy is that unresolved tension never fades. It grows. When feelings stay buried, misunderstandings get louder, and resentment quietly takes root. And once children are involved, the situation stops being just emotional and becomes deeply personal, with consequences that last. That's why this doesn't feel like an ending but a turning point. The real issue isn't picking sides or placing blame. It's whether both voices are truly being heard while silence and speculation dominate the space. Until that happens, outsiders will keep shaping the story, and the internet almost never tells the full truth, only the noisiest version of it. The story of Iman, Teyana, and the sudden introduction of Aaron Pierre shows just how delicate post-divorce dynamics can be, especially under the scrutiny of millions of fans. When new relationships intersect with old responsibilities, private decisions become public debates, and the complexity of human emotion collides with the simplicity of online assumptions. Fans and observers can only analyze what they see, but the truth lives behind closed doors, where negotiations, conversations, and boundaries define the real story. As speculation grows, one thing is clear. Healing is ongoing, parenting is demanding, and life after divorce is never as clean as it looks online.